Yeah, this was
volume.
a shot of espresso,
Oh, okay.
water to taste.
That's how much I know about coffee.
That's an Americano.
Okay.
This is where I burn my lips.
Oh, you're not gonna wait. See, on my last film, I said, oh no, I learned I gotta wait.
Do you have an Apple or a Samsung camera?
This is Apple.
Oh, because a Samsung, you can actually dip it right in the coffee. No, I'm sorry.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tigner Adventures. And as promised in our last video, I told you we're going to be talking to Michael and Suzanne. Hello.
Hi.
They are our new friends that we met here at Sundance RV Resort. And so a little bit of history. I might get some of this wrong, but they used to own a coffee business. Correct. And then after many years,
Yes. we left it. I went into a different career for a while, and then just before retirement, I got back into coffee roasting. Because we're spoiled to good coffee, and good coffee is expensive.
Okay, cool.
When you buy it roasted.
Yeah, when you buy it already done for you, and then you don't really have a control on how you really want it.
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, Michael's going to go through, and we're going to talk about how he's doing this because he lives in this motorhome here with Suzanne
and Lily.
and Lily. She just put Lily down, but they live in their motorhome, and so they couldn't bring their big roasting business with them, right?
Correct.
Big stuff.
We
right?
thought about it.
He wanted to, just couldn't find the bay room because
Tumblers down
Suzanne
the
wanted all that room, right? She's not going to say anything.
No, we have to tow a car. We couldn't tow a trailer. And a car.
And the car, yeah. So
that's
anyway, Michael's going to show us how he now roasts their coffee just with a simple little setup. And this is something that you could do also. This is kind of, if you look back at this video right here, you'll notice that that was our last video. We talked about the Keurig. And so this is kind of the way to do it if you really like the taste of coffee, or coffee. Do we call you a coffee snob or
Sure. Connoisseur.
Connoisseur.
Yeah.
There we go. Connoisseur.
Connoisseur.
Yeah. So
And slow.
and snob.
She's the
But
connoisseur.
if you're doing this and you want to have some really good coffee, then this is the way. This is an option for you if you want to get into it. It's a fun little hobby, right? I mean, this is
It's
what
very
he likes to
And
do
you
about.
can drink it.
Yeah, they make coffee for us every time we want.
We can drink this hobby.
We can drink this
Drink
hobby.
the
So,
hobby.
all right. So, Michael, let's go ahead and jump in here, and we'll have you show us what you got here.
Okay.
Okay. So this is your setup here and everything. So why don't you go ahead and explain to us what this is and kind of how all this works?
Okay. Well, basically, these are green beans prior to roasting, obviously. Our goal is to cook them. And we need to do it with some kind of control, not too slow, not too fast. You don't want to scorch them. What I've found, the easiest way for me to do this on the road is with a whirly type popcorn popper. Now there's some cheapies out there and there's some good ones. And we'll talk about how to get this good stuff later. So I use that. I use an induction burner because it's so much easier. If I did a bunch of boondocking, I'd probably use a propane burner, which I have in the past, but you never know when you're going to run out of gas in the middle of a roast. I've just found this induction to be a lot handier as long as I can plug in. And I want to cool my beans when they're done. And within a couple of minutes, I want that cooking process to stop. So I have this little screen with a fan that pulls the heat down underneath and dissipates. And it pulls some of the chaff away as well, the loose skin that comes free during the cooking process. And I have my phone. This is my timer. I have certain milestones I'm going for. 5 minutes to start greening. Or I'm sorry, start the browning process. So from green to turning yellow, 5 minutes. To something called first crack, my goal is somewhere between 8 and 10 minutes. And then depending on the level of roast, a couple minutes after that.
So that's all cool, and we're going to have links in our description below for our Amazon store where you can actually get this equipment that's been tried and true and tested with Michael here. So let's talk about the beans themselves. Where do you get them, the quality of them, things like that?
Okay. Well, at this do-it-yourself level, you don't get the breaks that you do commercially. When I did this commercially, I could get beans for anywhere from $2 to $5 a pound. Occasionally some very special bean more expensive. Well, at the quantities that we buy, the do-it-yourself quantities, we're probably paying on average $5 to $6 a pound, sometimes less, sometimes a little more. It has gone up recently. There's places online. I like a place called Sweet Maria's out of San Francisco. They cater to the do-it-yourselfer. Lots of great training videos. Lots of variety, coffees from all over the world. That's another fun thing about this. You can just get coffees when they become available and try them. I usually have 5 or 6 or 7 or more varieties at any given time. This one is called Timor-Leste. This is in the Pacific Islands, a little south of Indonesia and a little west of Papua New Guinea. But again, you can get it from all over the world. Slightly different colors, different sizes, different looks. They all come with their own flavor profiles due to the climate, the soil. It's a vast thing that once you get into it, it's really quite fun, and the learning never ends. This method, you can do a pound at a time, which is a pretty substantial amount for a do-it-yourselfer. I prefer to do closer to 3/4 of a pound. To me, it's a little easier to control. It's a little easier to cook it evenly. And I like to get it done, somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on what level of roast I'm going for. And 3/4, in the industry, we speak in terms of metric. This is 350 grams, roughly 3/4 of a pound. We're gonna preheat this. I'm gonna use this so I can gauge the bottom temperature, and you want to start with a pretty substantial temperature, maybe 400 degrees in here, because when you drop the beans in, that temperature dramatically goes down, obviously, to match that room temperature or outside temperature, wherever you may be. And then the idea is to ramp up the heat. You ramp up the heat, and then I'm going to adjust it from high to medium according to the time. Like I mentioned earlier, that first 5 minutes is a drying time. I'm taking a lot of moisture out of this, and I'm shooting for about 5 minutes to see a very noticeable change from a green bean to more of a yellow going into a light brown. That's 5 minutes. And I'm doing that at a fairly substantial temperature level. I will then reduce it because I don't want to scorch it. But then my next goal is something called first crack, when the bound water that's encapsulated in these seeds, when they become when they reach boiling point, they'll actually crack, much like popcorn. They don't expand like popcorn, but it's the same process. And in the commercial world, I used to shoot for 10 minutes. If I could hit 10 minutes, I was happy, more or less. Some variety with different coffees. It's harder to do that with this method. So I'm happy anywhere between 7.5 minutes to 10 to get first crack. And then after that happens, I'm I continually stir this because I don't want it to scorch, and then I'm smelling, I'm looking, and I make a judgment call, how dark do I want this? I tend to go a heavy medium. I'm not a real big dark fan, although this will do it. And you can go all the way into what's called second crack. And second crack is, you're definitely into the dark zone at that point.
The dark side.
The dark side. So I'm going to turn this on and get the preheating started. And that'll take probably 3 or 4 minutes.
All right, so he has the burner here set at 425. He's checking the inside temperature there. And do you want that to be 425?
Well, I'm getting it to about 400, and then I'll drop the beans. We're close. Okay, I'm going to set get my timer started. I just use a stopwatch timer so I can just see how it's progressing. And I drop my beans, and I get them going. And this is pretty much the extent of the noise that we'll be listening to for the next 12 or so minutes. Occasionally I'll speed it up a bit because I just want to make sure it's mixing and none of those beans are sitting too long on the bottom. That's it that way. So now you just patiently wait and stir. Now we're at a little over a minute. At a minute and a half, and this is just from experience using this method, at a minute and a half I'm going to just reduce the heat down to about 400, from 425 to 400. I just want to slow up, they call it the rate of rise. In a perfect world, you'd like that rate of rise to be at a very controlled, not fast, but steadily increasing pace. You don't want it to get away from you. So now I'm going to go down to 400, actually 390. I'm going to take a look. Starting to smoke a little bit. So I'm going to keep it closed to keep the heat generating. Remember, my first goal is 5 minutes from green to yellow or brownish.
Okay, and if it starts getting the colors changing too fast, things like that, then you just adjust it.
Yeah, I'll just slow it down. Let's see. Let's try to get some better light here. It's hard to find it, but it's getting there. It's still green, but it's starting to show some yellow.
You know, when you're on camera, nothing ever works exactly. Got too many things you're thinking about at the same time.
Yeah.
Trying to coordinate what you're saying and what you're doing, right? But I can just say, Michael's a master at this. So he doesn't even have a comeback because he's thinking too hard about the thing.
Well, I'm thinking it's hard to be a master when you're not using the absolute best equipment, like a good drum roaster with a controlled speed and a controlled environment and ventilation, all that's controlled. So you do the best you can with equipment like this.
Wow.
You're not going to achieve the absolute best results possible in coffee roasting, but it's completely satisfactory.
I mean, this little method and cost and everything is considerably less than what you pay for the other stuff, right?
Yeah, this is roughly, now this is a good quality popper. This is stainless steel. It's got a heavy bottom. It can handle induction, obviously. It's very different than the little thin-walled aluminum whirly poppers that are out there. This is roughly $50.
But in comparison, you're talking at least 10,000.
Yeah. I had a 1 kilo roaster, which is a little over 2 pounds. quantity that you could roast at any given time. And that little starter unit was 6,000 plus accessories. But yeah, you're easily into 10,000 and up for quality commercial equipment. Okay, I'm at 5 right now. I know there's some light here somewhere. Just have to find it. So I'm happy with this. I'm seeing yellow, I'm seeing brown. And I'm going to just keep on going. So I've achieved the first goal. I want to slow it down a little bit because this next bit can go pretty fast. So I'm currently at 390. I'm going to knock this down to 375. And now I'm just going to monitor. I'm smelling it. There's different things. As you start learning about coffee roasting and you start doing it yourself, you start paying attention to things. This early stage, it almost smells like boiled pasta. It's an herby or a kind of a vegetable smell almost. And then it starts getting into grainy smell, like you're baking bread. And you can start to gauge your timing through those smells. The smells and the colors. It's easy to stop turning this thing so you can speak or so you can rest your wrist, but then the likelihood of scorching a bean just jumps dramatically, so I keep it going. I've seen some people use this method and they turn it slower. They're like this. I haven't had as good of results doing it that way, but it could have been their heat source. It's hard to say. It could have been the bean they were using. Some beans are harder than others. Some are soft. The harder the bean, the more durable it is. It can handle hotter temperatures. Okay, I'm going to take a peek here. Yeah, it is definitely kind of brown. I'm going to slow it down even more. I'm at 7 minutes. Hang on a sec. Okay, I'm at 360. So my guess, this is at 7 minutes. From the color of that, I'm thinking this is probably going to pop at about 8.5. We're listening for the crack. That's kind of where I'm at right now. You have to focus on that sound. And I'm going to go back up. I don't want to slow it down and go into this thing called a stall. I don't want to bake the coffee. If it just sits in heat without actually progressing in its roasting, it gets a lackluster taste. It's past my projected 8.5 minutes, so I think maybe I cooled it down a little bit too much, so I increased it.
I heard one crack.
Yeah. It'll be going full scale here in a moment. And at that point, I make I take a look at the clock and I begin my timing as far as roast level. One thing you have to deal with is when you try a lot of coffees, it takes a little while to get used to a particular coffee and what it responds to. I think I'm going to bump it up a little bit. Okay, they're starting. Okay, now we're getting into our first crack. And again, this is the moisture being released from that steam. It's reached the boiling point and it's forcing its way out. At this point, a super light roast level drinker could stop at any point. Personally, it's too light for me. It's a little brighter and tartar than I like. You get more chocolates and caramely the longer you go. I shoot for roughly, I don't know, about 3 minutes after the start of first crack. And I'm going to turn it down a little bit now. It's pretty warm in there. Smoking like crazy. By the way, you do want to do this outdoors or underneath a very powerful ventilating fan if you do it inside. Notice I've opened the door. I don't want an intense smoky flavor in there, so I do let it ventilate. First crack has completed. There's a couple sprays. About 5 minutes from now, 4 to 5 minutes from now, second crack will begin, but I don't want to take it that dark. I'll do that sometimes for espresso blends. This one is not intended for espresso. And I don't tend to go quite as dark. I'm getting close to stopping. I do want to take a little look at a bean here. Okay. I'm going to turn on my fan over here. And I'm dumping this at 14 minutes.
Now we're just working on cooling it down.
Now we're cooling it down. Air is being pulled from the top and coming out these little holes at the bottom. And I'm just assisting it here. Plus, the shaft, the skin that has cooked and peeled off is being pulled through this coarser screen, and it'll just clean this a little bit for me. I do have a couple of sieves that I'll go back and forth to try to blow that chaff away, but this does a very efficient job. Still very warm to the touch. Look how beautiful that is. So, if you have experience roasting beans with a frying pan, which I've seen quite a bit, it's really hard to get this kind of evenness with the frying pan. This is really good. It's not perfect. I can see it, some very slight scorching here and there, but I'm very happy with this roast.
See, I told you Michael was a master. How many years have you been doing this? Because you do make it look pretty easy.
Well, I've been involved in coffee since the early 90s. Have had a business for a decade, a little more than 10 years. And then the roasting, I did it commercially for 2 years. And when I retired, I gave it up because I couldn't travel with it. So 2 years roasting, but most of my adult life paying attention to it. Okay, and this is done. It looks wonderful.
Smells good.
So from start to finish, this is a 14-minute roast, which is not so bad. I put it back into these just because I put them into baggies, and it's hard to pour from screen to baggie. So this is just a temporary step. Here's a little look at that chaff I mentioned. So this is all stuff you really don't want to put it in your grinder. If I thought I needed it, like with certain dry processed beans which have more chaff, I could go from screen to screen. But this really, it's adequate, so I don't need to do that. I'm just going to transfer it into the baggie. I recycle the bags, so there's nothing pretty or fancy.
The next step is to go in and grind some beans and have some coffee.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. During this process, CO2 was trapped in these beans, and now there's a process called off-gassing. When you buy quality beans, you've probably noticed there's a one-way valve on the bag. And that is because as this off-gasses, releases CO2, it leaves that valve. You really want your coffee to rest off of roast, it's called. You let it rest for 2, 3, 4 days before you grind it and roast it. So you in a perfect world, I mean, if I needed a cup of coffee, there's nothing that would prevent me from grinding this right now and making a cup. But I know it'll taste better in 2 or 3 days. So I made sure I had coffee left over. I didn't wait until the last minute to roast this.
So here is the coffee machine that Michael and Suzanne, their setup. You can see it's a lot bigger than our little Keurig.
Yeah, this is definitely out of the norm in the RV world.
But you got a nice spot there. It works out perfect because your sink's at an angle, and
it does work. It fits. It's not cheap. This isn't your typical camping device. But having been in the business so long, some things are really hard to let go. And you can't get great quality espresso with a tiny unit that's not made for it. So this is definitely an extravagance. So I'm going to I mentioned espresso. We use this for everything. We could use a French press. We could use any method of preparing coffee. I have a Turkish grinder over here that I'll use sometimes. But I'm just going to make an Americano. We do that a lot. Standard cup of coffee, a shot of coffee and water. Part of being a picky coffee drinker is having a picky...
No, she said connoisseur. What was the word? Connoisseur.
Oh, okay. Part of being a connoisseur is having a process that you can repeat. And in line with that, we measure how much coffee, we weigh how much we use, we adjust the grinder, we tamp with a certain amount of pressure, and if we're consistent along those lines, we can eliminate variables. And our goal is to make a perfect cup of coffee. And there's a lot of little steps along the way. So the more consistent you can be, the easier it is to achieve that perfection or to identify what the problems might be. So I begin by weighing it.
How much weight?
This particular machine with the portafilter that I have in here, it likes a 21 gram shot. So I am going for 21 grams. Perfect. Another expense is a grinder that is able to do a nice consistent grind for an espresso machine. And the last person forgot to clean this. But I'm not going to mention Suzanne's name. It just wouldn't be fair.
That's starting to sound more like Michael now.
A nice level. I could go into a shot glass, but I'm just going to go directly into the cup. I'm going to look at how that comes out. I've got a timer going. My goal is 25 seconds to achieve about 1 3/4 ounces. It started at about 11 seconds, so it's looking pretty good right now. And there's 25 right there. I didn't measure this in a shot glass, but I can see that I achieved what I was after. Now I'm just going to add hot water.
That was just the mix you did earlier. Then you put the hot water with it to give it
This
the
was
full
a
volume.
this was a shot of espresso,
Oh, okay.
water to taste.
That's how much I know about coffee.
That's an Americano.
Okay.
This is where I burn my lips.
Oh, you're not going to wait. See, on my last film, I said, oh, no, I learned. I got to wait.
Do you have an Apple or a Samsung camera?
This is Apple.
Oh, because a Samsung, you can actually dip it right in the coffee. No, I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. So that was Michael and Suzanne's debut. Let's go over there. We're cutting Michael off a little bit. But anyway, nice little process of making your own. If you really want a great cup of coffee that these guys strive for with every cup, right?
Oh, yes.
Every
Yeah.
cup.
Every
That's
cup.
the goal.
Every time Ninette's not at home and it's like, where is she? I always know she's over here. And Suzanne
Spilling the
is
beans.
Visiting,
She gets
visiting
me
her.
drunk on coffee, and then I
Yeah.
have to tell them everything.
And she starts talking and talking, so we have no secrets.
I know.
So anyway, so it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Michael and Suzanne, for sharing your place and your
And
whole
your
processing. Yeah, your hobby.
Our pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're
a lot of
welcome.
fun. These are some new friends we met here, and we're pretty excited. We're going to kind of probably visit them quite often to have some coffee. Right? So, anyway, so thanks for following us. We'll see you down the road. Our next video will be about our resort we're staying in and the lights that are here, and it's Christmas time.
lights.
So this will be our next video will be released on Christmas morning. With all the happenings and holiday happenings here around the resort. So thanks for following us, and we'll just plan on seeing you on the next video. If not, then please stop in and see us here at Sundance RV Resort in Yuma, Arizona.
Yay!
So
Cheers.
Cheers. Merry Christmas.